Okay. Okay, guys. So, what have we been talking about so far the last week or two about reading? So, what have we kind of been learning? Specifically, when we have been reading this book, Those Darn Squirrels. Paul?
You don't know if you like something or not if you don't try it.
Good. So, what do we kind of call that in a story? Does anybody remember? I have some clues on these poster boards. James? Huh? Okay. What is that called though, Elisa? So giving stuff another chance, was that a conflict? No. So look at these three posters. I have character, setting, main idea, problem, conflict, ending, resolution. So we said giving people a chance. What does that fit with? How about the main lesson of the story? The main idea in the story. So that's what this author's trying to teach us, right? So remember when I told you about the Brussels sprouts? How you can't say you can't like it if you've never tried it. So that's kind of what we've been talking about. We have also covered in each story that we have been reading so far who was in the story. So remember, those are usually introduced in the beginning of a story. So the characters, the setting. What does setting mean? Quinn?
Where is it in the book?
Good. So where is this story being placed? Good job. So what did I just say the main idea is? Elisa? Okay, giving things a chance. Good. So that's the lesson. Yes, the lesson that the author is trying to teach us. Okay? And then usually in the middle of our story is when we encounter what?
A problem.
Good, Leon, a problem. Thank you, Paul. I know you're probably about to say that. The problem or conflict in the story. So we're going to encounter a problem, and now we got to try and fix it, which is where we kind of come to our, what does that poster say over there?
Ending resolution.
Our ending or resolution of the story.
Resolution.
Yes, exactly. So that's what we have been talking about with reading. And today, we are going to be answering those questions of who, why, how, and when, or where. Good job, Lisa. And then also recount the lesson or the main idea in the story. So that's what we're going to be working on today. And also be able to describe how characters in a story respond to major events or challenges. So our problem or conflict and how characters respond to that, which would be our ending resolution. So today, the first thing I'm going to do is read this story to you. Okay? Clark the Shark. And then we're going to do this activity that I have together first. And then what I'm going to do is read this story. And then you're going to go off into your groups that I have set up. And then you're going to kind of do this on your own a little bit. And then we're going to kind of talk about it and what you put. So, what I have are sticky notes. Each one is color-coded with its posters. So blue is the characters, orange is the setting, purple is the main idea, green is the ending resolution, and this pinkish reddish color is the problem or conflict. So as I am reading through this story, I I want you guys to make sure that you are paying attention to all of these and trying to remember and recount those when we kind of come back to it after we are done reading. Sound good? Okay. Clark the shark. In all the wide blue seas, in all the wide blue world, the top school for fish was Theodore Roosterfish Elementary. And of all the fish at Theodore Roosterfish, the biggest and the strongest was Clark the shark. Clark loved school and he loved his teacher, Mrs. Inky Dink. He loved to play upsy-downsy and spin-a-majig with his friends. Clark loved his life. That's so nice. He loved his life. School is awesome, shouted Clark the shark. Less shouting, more reading, said Miss Inky Dink. Lunchtime is sweet, yelled Clark the shark. Munch your own lunch, said his best friend, Joey Mackerel. Recess rocks, bellowed Clark the shark. You are playing rough, Clark, cried the other kids. Yes, Clark loved his life with all his sharky heart, but he loved everything way too much. He was too loud. He was too wild. He was just too much shark for the other fish to handle. After a while, no one would play with Clark. No one ate lunch with him. No one sat with him at circle time. Even his best friend, Joey Mackerel, said, "Cool your jets, Clark. You're making me crazy." It's kind of like me sometimes telling you guys to calm your bodies when we've got way too many wiggles going on, right?
Why not call me Finn?
Well, you guys don't have
You
this.
only tell me.
Okay. Shh. One day, Clark asked Mrs. Inky Dink, "What's wrong with everyone?" Mrs. Inky Dink patted his fin. "Clark, sometimes you play too hard. You munch too hard, and gosh, you even help too hard." "But life is so exciting," said Clark. "There's a time and a place for everything," said Mrs. Inky Dink. "And sometimes the rule is stay cool."
Stay cool.
Stay cool. At recess, Clark tried to stay cool, but he pushed the swing with too much zing. "Sorry," said Clark, "I forgot." "Yikes," cried Joey Mackerel. At lunch, Clark tried to stay cool, but everything smelled so good that he munched a bunch of lunches. "Sorry," said Clark, "I forgot." "We're starving," said his friends.
He's a shark. You gotta let him eat.
Yeah.
Eat people instead. Go up in the earth.
Oh.
He does imitate the sharks. Stop.
In class, Clark tried to stay cool, but a good book got him all shook up. "Now, Clark," said Mrs. Inky Dink, "this isn't the time or the place. Tell me, what's the rule?" "Stay cool," said Clark. "Hey, that rhymes," he cried. Then Clark got a big idea in his sharky head. "Maybe if I make a rhyme, I'll remember every time," he thought. Was that rhyme?
Yeah.
That's kind of what we've been working on in phonics too, right? Rhyming words. The next day, he put his plan to work. In class, when lessons got exciting, Clark wanted to bounce up out of his seat. Instead, he told himself, when teachers start talking, don't go walking. It does. He's trying to rhyme so that he remembers. And what do you know? It worked. "Attaboy, Clark," said Mrs. Inky Dink. Clark smiled. Lessons are fun. lunch, everything smelled so yummy. When Clark wanted to eat and never stop, he told himself, only munch your own lunch.
That's a great rice.
And it worked again. Way to go, Clark, said his friends. Clark grinned. Lunch is fun.
Lunch is fun. Lunch fun. That's fun.
At playtime, Clark told himself, easy does it, that's the way. Then my friends will let me play. And playtime was fun. Once more, Clark loved his life.
He didn't rhyme that time. Yeah, he did. Wait, I just rhymed. He didn't rhyme that time.
But then a shadow fell across the playground. A ginormous shadow with tentacles galore. It's a new kid, and he looks scary, cried Joey Mackerel. I got itchy nose. Swim for your lives! The squid squashed the slide and it snapped off the swings. Oops, my bad, said the new kid. What do you guys think's gonna happen?
I've already seen this. Don't give it away.
Let's find out. Wait, said Clark. He just wants to play. Let's find a way. And he swam at the new kid with all his might. Clark played harder than he ever had before. Upsy-downsy and spin him a jig. Why, he even made up a new game. Tail Wumpa Lumps. Wow, that was fun, said the new kid breathlessly, and he settled down. If you want to come to school, you've got to stay cool, said Clark.
Yeah, there are some cool relaxed.
That's right, Clark, said Mrs. Inky Dink. And thanks for taking care of our new classmate, said the squid. Hooray for Clark the shark! Everyone cheered.
New hot, said the squid.
Good job. That night, Clark's mother asked, what did you learn at school, dear? There's a time and a place for everything, Clark said. Sometimes you stay cool. But sometimes a shark's gotta do what a shark's gotta do. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is together, we're gonna go through our sticky notes and match all these up. We're gonna do the other one next, okay? Let me just check the timing on my video real quick. Okay. We're doing good. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna focus on the characters in the story. So, who was the main character? Payson? Clark.
The
what?
shark.
Good. Clark the shark. So I want us to focus on the main characters. So obviously we have Clark the shark. Who else?
Sid the squid.
Who?
Sid the squid.
Sid the squid. Okay, he was
And friends.
a big one at the end. Sid the squid.
But his friends weren't.
And then there's one more.
Mrs. Inky Dink.
Good. Mrs. Inky Dink.
Oh yeah.
So what can you tell me about Clark the shark? Emmeline? He wasn't like anyone else. Why do you say that? So Clark the shark played rough, right? Why did he play rough compared to the other fishes in the sea?
Because he's a shark.
Because he's a shark? So what does that mean? Everett? Sharks are way bigger than the other fish, right? Yeah, they play rougher, good. Okay, so now, how about, so we don't know much about him, maybe his personality, but what is Sid the Squid like? Okay, play with other friends, but what about him? What is he like, Paul?
Kind of like, it was kind of like Clark at the beginning.
Good. So yeah, he was kind of like Clark in the beginning. So why do you say that?
Well, because he was like new and he wanted to play, and he was much bigger than even Clark.
Good. So he was much bigger, and being bigger, what might that mean?
That like you want to play rougher, fight.
You might play rougher, you might have a harder time, maybe what? I say it to you guys a lot. Not listening, but being quiet. How did Mrs. Inky Dink term what she say? What did she keep saying to Clark? Stay cool. Good.
Yeah.
So he had both Clark the Shark and Sid the Squid had a hard time staying cool. So what might that mean, Landon?
That means he was very hyper.
He was very hyper. Good. There's one word that I'm specifically looking for.
Crazy. Energetic.
Crazy. Okay, it's another C word I'm looking for.
Energetic.
Well, see, I'll give Kason a try. No, so control. He had a really hard time controlling his body.
K, not A.
Yes, control starts with a C, but that's okay. All right. So, can anybody tell me about Mrs. Inky Dink? Who was she? Okay. She's really kind. She's a teacher. That's what I'm looking for. Good. What else? Okay. He told us that. Anything else anybody wants to share? Brooklyn? Paul?
She helped Clark.
She helped Clark. Okay, so she's a helpful, kind teacher, right? And also an octopus. So, we have our characters up. What's our next step? Our setting. Does anybody remember where this story took place? Leon?
At school.
At school. Does anybody remember what that school is called? James? Okay, elementary, but there's a specific name. Does anybody remember?
It's Squid School. No.
It's okay if you don't remember. So, the elementary school that it took place at was called Theodore Roosterfish Elementary. Will you stick that on there, Lisa? Thanks.
Theodore is from Alvin and the Chipmunks. Yeah. The chubby one.
Okay, so I'm going to skip the main idea because I want to do that one last. So now we're going to move on to the conflict. So what was the problem in this story? Elisa? The shark played too rough. Good. Now what was that C word that I was talking about, Everett? Control. He couldn't control his body, and what did Mrs. Inkadink say?
Be cool.
Stay cool. So he couldn't control his body and stay cool. Excuse me. I'm going to stick this up there. So this was our problem. And also, since he couldn't do that, what happened? What would happen when he couldn't control his body? Kason?
He got an idea.
Okay, he got an idea, but what was kind of the effect of him not being able to control his body? Zeke?
So his friends stopped playing with him because he was too hard.
Good. His friend stopped playing with him because he couldn't control his body. He was super rough. You can put your hand up. Okay, so we kind of got that. Now, ending resolution. So, how did he solve this problem?
By just the octopus was going to rock my plane. There was a squid.
Okay, so what were ways that Clark the Shark tried to solve his problem? Elisa.
He made rhymes.
Good, he made rhymes to try and remember. And by him remembering that by rhyming, what ended up starting to happen? Emmeline? His friends started to come back, right? He was more chill. And then what happened at the very end of the story? Who was he introduced to? Landon? Sid the Squid, who was what?
Rhyme.
Elisa. Who was also rough, just like him too, right? So was he somebody that Clark could play with?
Yes.
Right? He was somebody that Clark could maybe be himself with, right?
Even be really rough.
Hey Leon, can you turn around please? Good. So, he rhymed to remember, enjoyed being himself outside of school. So when he was not in the classroom or in the lunchroom, or even sometimes out in recess, in certain situations, you gotta remember to stay cool. Okay, our last part. So our main idea, our lesson. What is the author trying to tell us in this story?
That way nicer when you have kids.
Good. There's a certain saying I am looking for that Mrs. Inky Dink said. Elisa.
Stay cool.
Stay cool, good. But there's one more thing she said that I'm looking
I
for.
know it, but I don't remember it.
So Elisa, can you go ahead and stand up for me? Can you read what is in the quotation marks right here?
Stay cool. There's a time and a place for everything.
So what does that mean? There's a time and a place for everything. Everett.
Like there's a time that you can be crazy and there's a time that you have to stay cool. I know.
Good. And what he said was there's a time to be crazy and there's a time to stay cool. So what were the times that Clark the Shark was crazy?
At home. At recess.
At recess?
Maybe at home.
Well, we don't know anything about at home, right? Because everything was taking place where?
Wait, at school.
At school. So what? At lunch, he was kind of crazy at lunch. Yes. Good. Now, what are places where you gotta stay cool?
Public places.
Public places. That's one.
The library.
The library. School in general. Okay. So Clark the Where did my sticky note go? So I'm gonna say the same exact thing. There is a time and place for everything.
Go take my pen. Bye-bye.
Go ahead, Reese.
Thank you.
Okay, so what's going to happen is right now I'm going to pause my video and then you guys are going to go to lunch recess and then when we come back we're going to continue, okay?